Hey everyone, welcome to another round of MK Partners release highlights. We are just about a week away from the international rollout of the Summer 22 release. That'll be that first weekend in June where it's live in orgs everywhere. And as we do here at MK Partners, Jesus and Tommy and myself have been reading through the release notes, looking for cool new features, updates, upgrades, life changers that have caught our eye that we think are going to benefit our clients and admins and devs throughout the Salesforce ecosystem. And we like to get together before the release day to do these videos where we run through some of the exciting things that we found. Again, if you aren't already subscribed to the blog over at Medium at Creme de la CRM, you can find these posts as well as other timely Salesforce related news articles, how-tos, helpful guides, and all of that sort of stuff. But today we're talking Summer 22 release. So thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Tommy, for joining me. And I think we can jump in. Jesus, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll be glad. Welcome, everybody. All right, so my article consisted of tackling the new enhanced Lightning components from the layout, as well as the new formulas that have been added to use. Pretty much on my end, what's happening is for related lists, it was something that you had to do within the page layout itself, which require you to actually go into the page layout and choose which list you want to include and then filter it from that point before the app, after the app was already built. However, though, with this update, they're actually going to let you do that within the app development process. So before you deploy the app, you can actually create all your related, filter related lists and dynamically create those based on the conditions that you set. So for example, you can have multiple related lists. If we take the opportunity object, for example, and have some that have been close won within the last 30 days, for example. So you can quickly review which are the opportunities that have been closing and kind of traverse to that list based on the accounts that you've set up. At the same token, within that same subset, you can actually have all the open lists at a particular dollar amount, which are pending to close. So pretty much any account executive or admin can go in and quickly identify and assess each account within their org and determine which are the opportunities that should be focused on each month along the way or based on the period that you've allocated to evaluate the importance of certain opportunities. So this is a useful tool to use when you need to determine, how to increase revenue within the deals that you currently have open, those opportunities that are pending to be closed, and you quickly want to assess that. You can assign different individuals a certain amount of accounts so they can come back and fully assess that. So the related list update will help, and that's one use case scenario. So all the related lists are based off the objects and the records that are available for that particular object.
Cool. So on the admin side, it's a little bit of time savings, or at least hassle savings, not having to have multiple tabs for the page layout and the app and everything else, setting it up. And then on the, we'll say, organizational side, just having more visibility into the data as well as like sort of dynamically presenting the relevant data based on the use case.
Right. I definitely agree on that. I think it could have been something that was being asked by many admins, and many use case scenarios kept coming up. So they figured, okay, we might as well allow the ability to generate these lists ahead of time instead of having, as you mentioned, multiple tabs, having to go back and forth continuously. So I think this was more of an individual request that was asked by Salesforce individuals. And I guess, they decided to go ahead and add it into this part of the release. So it means it could have been, already in the pipeline, maybe a few releases back, since they're always kind of ahead of schedule of things. So it's a good thing to know that, I can only hope that there'll be future ones like this moving forward. So whatever we're talking about now, or somebody's already putting into the pipeline, we'd like to see these kind of changes, that they may get released, one or two more releases moving forward.
Yeah. And there was also some updates or additional formula functions coming our way, right?
Yep. So I guess there's a lot of date and time formulas that are going to be added, which allows you to extract the date, the month, and the year for particular fields and values based on what criteria you need to utilize within the records that you have the information, as well as like time counter keep in order for you to identify the number of seconds that have traversed between a certain number of a certain date. So you can actually populate the amount of time that has like a stopwatch, right? Pretty much just let you count the number of seconds that have happened from a particular date up until a certain point, as well as some mathematical formulas that allow you to calculate some trigonometry functions. You know, this kind of took me back a little bit, going back to my high school years, algebra, and thinking about trigonometry. I'm like, yeah, I remember I had to kind of do a little bit digging in terms like, oh wait, what is the sine, cosine, and tangent once again? So that was pretty neat. There's a couple of other things that are set up here. I think there's a total of 18 formulas coming out. One of them was pretty cool, was actually having that pi constant. I remember back in high school, it was all about identifying how many digits could you remember in sequence after the decimal that you can actually repeat yourself back. And I think I only got to like 10, you know, and that was back then. So, and that's, you know, it just keeps going forever. So, but it's nice to be able to have that as just an actual variable that you can add within one of your functions. And then a couple of the other ones that were kind of pretty interesting was the fact that you can actually title case now some of your text. So in case you had text that needed to have the first letter capitalized for each word, you can actually go ahead and do that. And you can actually truncate. Actually, the one I think was very interesting that I thought was like truncating numbers based on the number of decimal digits that you want to allocate. Similar to the pi function, which goes unlimited, right? It never ends. For the truncate option, sometimes you don't need to have so many digits to do the formulation. You just need to calculate based on some either tens, hundreds, or thousands, potentially, or maybe even more, but usually tens, hundreds, thousands. So you don't need to have the long string of numbers that follows after the decimal. So the truncate lets you kind of, you know, round up or round down. Based on what you're calculating. Obviously, I'm thinking of just use case scenario, scientific data, experimental data. You have an abundance of information that you need to evaluate, and you need to worry about that additional digits past a certain number of digits following the decimal. So this lets you cut that off and just quickly just focus. So if you're looking at dollars, cents, I think that's very useful as a use case, but I think experimental data where people are taking large information need to compute it in some way.
Yeah, I think the date and time ones are exciting because I think we'll probably see a lot of folks rolling out those formulas for, you know, show me the total duration from when the lead was created to when the opportunity was closed won or closed lost, and then sort of like building up a institutional understanding of your sales velocity, or recognizing that, you know, it takes us 6 months on average to close an opportunity and win it. It takes us 3 months to lose an opportunity. So that means we need, you know, 3 times as many leads as we want to have closed won opportunities, because we'll burn through the losses twice as fast or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a great use case in there that you put together. And I feel like, you know, being able to quantify the amount of time it takes to progress through different stages as an example, it's a good understand. People need to have that information. So having Salesforce integrate these additional formulas is going to actually allow to create that, to gather that information a lot easier.
Yeah. And I like the title case abilities just from a marketing perspective. When somebody fills in a form and they put their first and last name all in lowercase, making sure that we could have a formula field that says, hey, go ahead and capitalize his first name and last name if it's not already, so that when we send them an email, it doesn't say, hi, Chris, in all lowercase and make me go like, oh, they missed that one, you know?
Good one. That's actually a good use case for that.
Cool. Well, thank you for running us through that. Tommy, I think you took a look sort of on the Pardot and Marketing Cloud side of things.
I did, yeah. So there's 2 blog posts that have been released. The first was Pardot is going to be rebranded and repackaged in Marketing Cloud as a terminology called Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. And that's that's going to be fully new to the whole Marketing Cloud system, and we're still kind of waiting on as consultants to see how things are going to go with regards to what Salesforce is trying to do with migrating everything over to Marketing Cloud. What we can say is the fact that they want to take the best parts of all the existing systems and repackage them in terms of new naming conventions. So, for instance, another example would be Datorama becomes Marketing Cloud Intelligence. Advertising Studio becomes Marketing Cloud Advertising, and Social Studio, unfortunately, is going to be retired, but will likely be rebranded, if I have to go with my gut, into one of the other areas of Marketing Cloud. So we're still kind of like, waiting on how things are going to go for the summer 22 release. In general, I think it'll be a positive thing to consolidate everything into a Marketing Cloud org, especially with Pardot, which is definitely popular, and definitely the functionality, which we'll get into in a second, will expand. It's a matter of where things are going to sit in terms of where Pardot, rebranded as I said, Marketing Cloud account engagement, will be residing, whether in its own sub cloud and Marketing Cloud, or it'll be a part of, I don't know, say part of Advertising Studio or something like that. We just don't really know yet, and we're just sort of waiting on the how things are going to go with this release. So everything's very initial. I'm trying to dig up as much as I can from the account executives at Salesforce, as well as internally, to find out where things are going to go, because I'm curious just as much as anyone else is. But in terms of the summer 22 release notes, one other thing that came up that I wrote on is basically the completion action options will be more customizable, and will be based on conditional groups. So basically, there'll be more customization. Say, like, if someone moves from, say, the East Coast to the West Coast, they'll be able to assign to a queue or assign to a person. Previously, that wasn't possible in terms of segmentation. Like high level with regards to how Pardot was before, it was like completion actions were basically if someone hits this mark or something like that within the Pardot.org, they would get sent an email or something like that. Now it's more customizable based on like demographics and stuff like that. Again, still kind of waiting on to hear from hear more from Salesforce. Like I said, I'm trying to dig up as much as I can internally from them to find out a little bit more as to what the customizable options are going to end up being, because all I'm seeing are like just general screenshots and high level information from Salesforce. So more to come on that one, probably more blog posts for that matter coming up. Yeah. And Chris, Chris or Jesus, do you have any questions so far?
Or? I think the completion action updates are super exciting, just from a marketing perspective. I think we've all seen workarounds to solve those. Like, you could use an engagement studio program in the past, and then you'd have rules on there that would split people into buckets, and then you take an action on those. But it's not always easy or the best to have to set up an engagement studio program for every email send you want to do. So letting us run those conditions in the completion action is going to be helpful. Also, just from like a perspective of, if you're scheduling a webinar and somebody fills out the form and you want to send them the autoresponder email that has the calendar invite and everything else, you can do that with a completion action. But now maybe you'll be able to say, hey, if their email address contains the domain name of our competitor, let's send them a different autoresponder that says, hey, thanks for your interest, but because you're a competitor of ours, we're not going to be inviting you to attend the webinar. So
True. Yeah. And let's put it this way, like in terms of like the conditional options that'll be available, we're still kind of waiting on, Salesforce to sort of, I guess, not only demo, but also like just give more insight as to what they're going to actually be. I feel like it's in beta mode at the moment, and it's going to be released very shortly, and it could be very exciting. I mean, they did the same thing Salesforce did with launching Engagement Studio, back 5-6 years ago, something like that, and it just sort of came out of nowhere. So I wouldn't be surprised for these new features to just sort of arise, and then as consultants we have to go in and sort of basically outline all the conditions that are available for this new subsect within Pardot, which I would assume is going to be residing in Marketing Cloud, but that obviously is more down the line. The other big thing, and Chris, thanks for pointing this out within our blog post. I'll give you obviously full credit for this, is the fact that the Slack notifications from these completion actions are automated, and that's going to be huge. I mean, again, it's high level. It's one of those things where basically you have the ability with completion actions to notify someone on Slack. As we all know, Slack is part of Salesforce. Everyone's using Slack. And so basically your pipeline is going to be sped up if you're using this, direct notifications via, an online chat is huge. That was not available before. We are still kind of waiting on the conditions as to how it's going to be stacked up. But in general, it looks like they're basically it's in the manufacturing mode to make sure that that Slack notifications feed tailed with completion actions, and also the best part for everybody who's using Pardot is the fact that all of the additions are available for these new features. So whether you're using the baseline Pardot or the high level Pardot, it doesn't matter. You're still going to get these features available. It's just more of a matter of gauging how things are going to go down the line, and how things are going to be merged with completion actions, especially with Engagement Studio, like I said, Slack, and just in general. It's pretty exciting stuff. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, just sort of managing everything, but in general, things are. It seems like they're shaping up, and Salesforce ultimately wants all marketing-based activities to be in Marketing Cloud, and I think they're going to do a really interesting and great job as to how they're going to stack it up. So we have to get used to basically the fact that the Pardot naming convention is eventually going to be going away probably by the end of the year, and that it'll be known as the new naming convention called Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, and there'll be new features that tie to it, and how it's going to be stacked up within the actual interface of Marketing Cloud, as far as I know, has yet to be determined. Like I said, I'm trying to get as much feet on the street as I can to find out more as to how it's going to look. But either way, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
thank you.
Absolutely.
And then I took a look at some updates headed Einstein's way, Einstein being the Salesforce artificial intelligence and machine learning component. They kind of have Einstein peppered throughout different platform products, but always with sort of a focus on, analytics and insights like next best action, prediction builder, things like that. So one of the big ones that we're seeing this year or this summer is the Einstein Vision OCR. OCR, of course, stands for optical character recognition, I think. I know I wrote it down here somewhere. But, optical character recognition. We've all sort of seen that in the past. Scan a document, the computer does its best job to read what's on that document and then produce it on the screen as a PDF that's editable, or in the case of Salesforce, Einstein OCR will be taking forms. So you have an intake form, you have a job application, you have a statement of work that you're sending out to a potential client. They fill it out by hand, and you'll be able to pass essentially an image of that document into Einstein OCR. It will, with the help of a customizable form that you'll get a dev to help you out on a little bit, but it'll then be able to identify the contents of that form, relate them to fields on the record, and then populate that data automatically. So instead of having your accountant sit there with the bill from the power company and then type on their computer while they look at the bill to log this month's expenses, they'll be able to just upload that picture. The bill gets scanned and it says, okay, this year, here's what we owe DWP, pay that bill. So it's really going to be a time saver on the data entry side, presumably, and take some of that duplicate effort out. Because, ideally, I think we'd all have our clients or our billers send us the information digitally or fill out a form online so we can capture it directly into Salesforce. But there's a lot of instances, especially for like nonprofits, where you're still going to have paper and pen interactions, especially if you're serving folks who don't have access to a computer. And so this is going to be a real time saver for those organizations and operations, and really take the workload off of, you pay your accountants to do their thing with the money, not to do data entry. So this will take that off their plate a little bit. There is also something sort of cryptic in the release notes, and I saw it a few times that Einstein was mentioned, and then Einstein has their own standalone release notes where, again, this was mentioned, but the extent of it is essentially, the headline is allow data analysis with Einstein data exploration consent. And they basically give you one sentence that says, work smarter with Einstein features when you permit Salesforce data scientists to explore and improve your data. And they tell us, where it will be. It's going to be in the setup menu. It's going to be a checkbox by project and object. So you'll be able to turn it on for some objects while you don't turn it on for others. But there's no real explanation of what the Salesforce data scientists mean when they say they're going to explore and improve your data. So we are definitely keeping our eyes peeled for updates around that. I definitely think we'll need more information before they can expect any large number of clients to be opting into something that involves, letting someone look at their data. And then the idea of data improvement suggests to me that they would have the power to alter it in some way, which I think is scary for a lot of people who rely on their data for most of their business decisions. To, they want to know that nobody's been in there changing things without their knowledge. So I think we'll definitely see more information come out around this and explanations of what's actually going on before we see too many people diving in to adopt. My best guess currently is that Salesforce might be looking to sort of capitalize on the wide adoption of the platform. They've got millions of clients. They have billions and billions of bytes of data. And so we know that there are firms like D&B or Zoom Info whose whole business model is accumulating business data and names and titles and relationships. And we also know that those databases are very rarely accurate or valuable for more than a few days because people are changing jobs, organizations are restructuring and stuff like that. So I'm kind of thinking this could be Salesforce's, first step into that world where they might say, hey, we noticed that 1,000 orgs all have Chris Stegall as marketing director at MK Partners, but 99% of them have this phone number and 1% have this phone number, which is his old cell phone number or something. And so then maybe it would empower Salesforce to prompt admins to say, hey, your data for this record is out of sync with 99% of our other firms. Would you like to sync it? Because it'd be interesting to see how they sort of walk the line with privacy and data integrity. But that's my best guess for what they might mean by exploring and improving your data. But we'll definitely keep our eyes on it as Summer 22 gets closer. I suspect that this is going to be a checkbox for a trial program, and they'll probably have a webinar where they try to explain exactly what's going on to get some people to adopt. And then depending on what kind of numbers they see, I think they'll probably try to widen it as a pilot program, but obviously going to need to give us some more information first before we'd be willing to opt in, say. That is that is a summary of the Summer 22 release highlights as we've seen them. Once again, next, not this weekend, not the last weekend of May, but that first weekend of June. I think it's the 4th and 5th, might be the 3rd and 4th. But if you look at your calendar and it says 6 and then a number, you know that it's time to start getting ready. These updates will be hitting orgs everywhere. And we'll keep you posted as we find out more information for these topics that we've been running through that we said require more information. But thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Tommy, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll go ahead and throw links to the blog post in the description of the video here, as well as links to the release notes. And if there's something that caught your eye in the release notes that we didn't cover, feel free to drop it in the comments, and we will take a look. Thanks for watching.